Well, it's that time once again, time to get your week off to a great start with a little faith and a little sport right here on Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also a co-production of Radio Maria, so we're coming to you on the Radio Maria Network. So great to have all of you Radio Maria listeners tuned in today for a brand new edition of Faith and Sport. I'm Chris, the producer of the show, and each week, coming to you live from the studio, your host for Faith and Sport, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, folks, for joining us today, however, wherever you are joining us. Oh, man, I have to admit, I am pretty excited. Chris, quiet those people down.
Yeah. Calm down now.
Chris,
they're all riled up.
I am generally really excited to be here in the studio. I'm generally really excited to do this program, but the days are longer now, right? It seems in spring, I think the temperature is up 10 degrees than it was just, say, a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And get this. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about in the world of sport. NCAA men's basketball is, of course, going on right now. This is the story in sport just about, right? March Madness. NBA is going on. NHL is going on. Major League Baseball starts opening season next week. Formula One starts their season next week. And college football is going on all at the same time. Folks, I'm thinking about making this a 2-hour show. That's the only way we're going to cover all this stuff. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to discuss all things sports, including our hit or miss with Carlos Herrera. He's going to join us in just 1 minute. And we got something new this week, Chris. The Charlotte Catholic Football Update.
That's right.
I'm really excited about this.
Awesome.
Then we're going to do weekend headlines. And get this, folks. Our guest is movie and documentary producer Megan Harrington, whose new documentary, The House That Rob Built, has just been released. But if you don't recognize her name through that documentary, The House That Rob Built, she is also one of the co-producers of Unplanned, the Abby Johnson story about the gal who worked for Planned Parenthood. She ended up switching teams, and now she is anti-abortion. She's a convert to the faith, and Megan is going to be on with us in the second half of this show. Now, we're going to bring Carlos on. We're going to have a great conversation. Him and I got a few things to talk about. But, Chris, one of the things I want to talk about before we go further into the show is about the men's conference that took place the other day.
That's right.
So, folks,
awesome conference.
Yeah, it was really great. The Men's Catholic Conference took place here in Charlotte Diocese, and I thought it was terrific, despite the fact that the pandemic's on. We had some great speakers. Bear Wozniak was there.
That's right.
John Eads was there. The gentleman who ran the whole thing and organized the whole thing, a great deal of appreciation needs to go out to him. Jason Murphy, boy, he did a great job, didn't he?
Yes.
It went so well. I know he was nervous. Who wouldn't be nervous running something like that?
Yeah.
But, Chris, I want to thank you. I want to thank Jason. I want to thank our CEO and president of Carolina Catholic Radio, David Papandrea. Primarily, I'm thanking you guys because you guys had a great deal to do with it. In fact, Ed Billick, our periodic co-host here, he was actually literally going into the audience at breaks and asking them what they felt about the conference, how many conferences they've been to, why is it so important to them. And then he would tape it on his phone, deliver it to you, you'd put it on your computer, and then literally within the hour, you were running those 5-minute segments on the air, weren't you?
That's right. Our live interviews straight from the Carolina Catholic Conference.
That was awesome. That was really awesome. So I want to thank all those guys again. I thought it went really well. And as big as anything, I want to thank all the gentlemen of the diocese that showed up. There were several people there from literally a couple hours away, and that's a big deal, right? It's one thing to commit your Saturday to a conference, but it's another thing to drive a couple hours and then commit to a Saturday and then have to drive back. But that's what our faith means to people, right? We got to connect with God, and we got to connect with God through other people. So
that's right. One of the highlights for me of the conference was getting to meet Bear Wozniak in person. Right. I mean, right where Ed and I were set up there at the table, he was like right next to us, so I got to talk with him a little bit. He autographed a copy of his Deep Adventure book for me. I'm looking forward to reading that, but it was just awesome to meet Bear Wozniak. I mean, he flew in all the way from Hawaii just to be there at the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas.
That's right. In fact, I mentioned this, I think, last week. I've been on Bear's show 2 times. He has an EWTN program, heard right on this EWTN affiliate.
Right.
And he's been on my show probably around 3 or 4 times, but it was the first time we ever met. In fact, when I walked up to him, I said, "Hey, Bear." And, of course, he didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Hey, brother, how you doing?" I go, "John Acquaviva." And he goes, "Come here, man. Give me a hug," or something like that. But he's a man's guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He just did a great job, and he was just talking purely to the dudes, and I thought it was
That's
good
right.
stuff. That whole thing gave me energy. I was really happy to be a part of it. Folks, I don't even think I mentioned this, but I was the master of ceremonies.
That's right.
And
did an excellent job.
I appreciate that, brother. I really enjoyed it, and I was really happy to just be a part of it. So, folks, listen, if you just happen to join in the last few seconds, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. This is a co-production of Radio Maria. If you ever need to get in touch with me, one of the ways you can do it is at John at faithandsportradio.com. And, of course, this is Faith and Sport. We apply our faith to all aspects of sports. So whether you're a referee, you're a player, you're a parent of a player, you're a grandparent of a player, referee or administrator, involved in sport in any way, this show is for you, because this is where we merge all the stuff about our faith and virtue into sports. So thank you for joining us today. Let's get right to it. We're going to do our hit and miss with Carlos Herrera. He's on the line. Let's get that conversation started. Lolitos, welcome to the show, buddy. Lolitos!
There's my call.
There it is.
That's going to be famous, I'm sure.
Brother,
Glad to be back, John, and congratulations on your newborn.
No, in fact, Carlos, thank you for saying that, because last week, was the first week back. He was born 2 weeks ago on this very day.
Oh, do we need to cue the trumpet again?
No trumpet needs to be cued. In fact, we did that a lot with Bear the other day,
Yeah.
didn't we? Anybody who's at the conference knows what that sounds like. But no, thank you, Carlos. He is healthy. He's a happy little baby. And I mentioned this last week, but now it's even better. Alicia and I, I'm getting more sleep than she does because she's naturally feeding him. But I get around, Carlos, in the last 5 or 6 days, I've averaged around 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep. And Alicia's probably got around 5 or 5.5. Isn't that great?
That is fantastic for you, and clearly inequality of sexism right out of the gate right here.
That's right.
It's our show.
That's right. Why don't we?
In a microcosm.
That's right. So why don't we do this? Let's do our hit and miss. If we have any time, we can just talk about how the weather's been, respectively, in our cities and where we're from. But no, we got tons of stuff to talk about. We're clearly going to run out of time before we cover everything. But let's at least get to our hit or miss of the week. As always, you go first. Do you have a hit or a miss for us, brother?
So I'm going with a hit, and in this week's show, just sort of an update on this transgender athletics bill that was passed as one of the first things that Biden did on a federal level, and it was an executive order from the president, so it wasn't really passed by the House and Senate as of yet, trying to make it into law. But there have been at least 20 states now that have passed laws, and it's very interesting how everybody words things.
That's right.
The left would word this as being unfair and inequality for the transgender person, and then on the other side, in terms of trying to let women compete against women, it's seen as being unfair to women, biological women.
Right.
So it's really kind of it's a back and forth between this, but really it's 20 states. Hopefully there'll be more states that are going to start looking at this and pass a law that will survive any kind of national scrutiny in the courts, allowing women to compete against women and maybe even create another division for transgender athletes. At least that's how I think it should be done. So there's more steam heading in that direction, and hopefully let's hope it continues.
Absolutely. That's a good point that there should be a third category, right? Boys should compete against boys, and at the college level, men against men, girls against girls, women against women, and then there should be a third category. The LGBTQ community and the ones that are fighting for the transgendered females, people have gone from a male to a female to compete against women, biological women. They're screaming from the rafters that this is unfair, but what would actually be fair, not to mention that it's unfair for the biological women that are getting competed against for reasons stated on this show before, and anybody that thinks about it for 30 seconds can articulate it and basically, in my mind, body slam that argument on the other side. But that's what is going to maybe calm this. The issue, though, is that at least at this point, Carlos, the number of people who are biologically or who are transgender male or transgender female, it is so small probably at the high school ranks that there would really be nobody to compete against. But on the other hand, that shouldn't be the problem of the state. That shouldn't be the problem regarding our faith. That should be their issue that they have to deal with. Agreed?
Yeah, and I think in all reality, I don't think there's enough. Maybe in the future it grows larger, or maybe you have transgendered athletes compete, but they don't. If they come in first, they come in first in the transgendered category,
That's
and the second place finisher of the race, who is a biological woman, should get first place for the biological women category. I mean, it's one of these things where you have to figure out a way to differentiate, but you're not going to convince people that are die hard on the opposing spectrum. And matter of fact, what you're going to be called is transphobic for even bringing this up, and that's unfortunate.
It is really unfortunate. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. This is a co-production of Radio Maria. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science down the road at Wingate University in Wingate, North Carolina. Joining me, as he does just about each and every Monday, is Carlos Herrera. Carlos, let's continue this conversation. And I want to state this before we just carry on for at least a couple more minutes on this. Regular listeners to our show may be kind of tapping their forehead and maybe knocking their head against their window gently as they're driving, going, dude, you guys have already talked about this. Indeed, we have. But Carlos and I are not going to stop talking about this until this word about this has been, to the word, this word, I should say, has been heard by the faithful and even the non-faithful. Because folks, especially when it comes to the pandemic, they're like, I listen to the stats, I listen to the science, until it infringes upon something that they disagree with. And I think this is the very case with this. Everybody's all about kindness and feelings, but we should be also about facts and statistics. In other words, kindness is great. Feelings are wonderful, but they are only fully justified if it is tempered with the truth. And that's one of the things that Carlos and I want to keep doing when we talk about this. By the way,
let me add, if I could, just interject. We were talking about this. Martina Navratilova.
Yep.
She's played tennis at the highest levels.
That's right.
One of the most well-known people in the sport.
That's right.
She's gay, right? And she had a tremendous amount of stigma, of discrimination she's had to deal with to kind of be able to live that lifestyle. So you would think that she would be in favor of trans athletes having the ability or the rights to compete against biological women.
That's right.
Yet she is a diehard opposed to this.
That's right.
From the perspective that she claims, and has done research on this, but she just claims from her own experience that biological men have advantages that biological women do not have from the moment of birth. It's in the DNA, physiological, physical, right?
Right.
And she just feels that competing against biological women, if you're a male, is unfair, and she doesn't shy away from it. And she's been ostracized and called transphobic. And this is a woman who, if she knows about discrimination and challenge, is somebody who's gone through what she's gone through. And I'm not advocating that lifestyle, but I'm just pointing out that here is somebody who is able to look at it from an experience of playing and also knowing sort of the athletes that you're competing against for years. And she has this opinion and has done a lot of research on it and stands steadfast to this.
Absolutely. And further, and to make this clear, she was a member of a United States organization that was brought together to fight for the rights and support the rights of the LGBTQ community, right? In particular, athletes. And she went on to say that she would not be happy if she had to compete against a transgender woman, and argued a man could reverse their decision after transitioning. This is right from ESPN.com. Quote, a man can decide to be female, take hormones if required by whatever sporting organization is concerned, win everything in sight and perhaps earn a small fortune, then reverse his decision and go back to making babies if he so desires. She went on to say, it's insane and it's cheating. I'm happy to address a transgender woman in whatever form she prefers, but I would not be happy to compete against her. It would not be fair. So well stated. Too well stated that this group went on to remove her from this particular advisory board. That is unbelievable. The person that they had on their side is probably the most famous gay athlete of her time and one of the most famous athletes, not just gay athletes, but athletes of all time. She is 18-time Grand Slam winner, and she was on their side fighting for what she thought was fair. But everything that they bring up is not fair. And she went on to say that. And so what do, Carlos? They remove her from the advisory board.
And immediately call her transphobic, which, exactly. If you understand that, it really means that you almost have a fear or a hatred of the trans individual, which is not even true in her case, or even in our case as Catholics. It's one of these things that we love the sinner, we love the individual, we love whoever it is at the core of the being because we're all created alike. But when you start sort of interpreting how your lifestyle is going to be or even what your gender is, then you're going to create particular issues and conflicts that have to be sort of thought out and solved. That doesn't make you homophobic, transphobic, racist, or anything. And that's what we try to bring out in our show.
Absolutely, or bad in any way. Good stuff, Carlos. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, also a co-production of Radio Maria. Folks, listen, if there is a feeling you have about this or any other topic that we talk about, please go to the website, carolinacatholicradio.org, and then if you search for my show, you can see the contact information. You can tweet me. You can email me. Please, we want to know how you feel on this and other stuff. And as always, if there's somebody in your community that you think their story deserves to be heard because they're particularly good at what they do, they develop good leadership skills, they're particularly good at coaching, but yet temper that with some good behavior in raising our kids the way that we want to be raised. Please let us know about that. We'd love to have them on the show, even if they're in your state. In Radio Maria land, there's a bunch of different states, Louisiana, Texas, Pennsylvania, and so forth. Please bring their attention to us and bring them to our attention, I should say, and we'd love to have them on. Guys, we're going to run out of time here, but before we go, I want to get to my hit or miss, and mine is a miss. And let me talk about the roots of this. My son and daughter, Luke and Claire, have both started their baseball and softball seasons respectively. And last week, I'm standing, kind of up on this hill watching Claire's game, and next to me is this big sign, and it has all these rules, like things to do and not do here at the facility. It's like 14 different baseball and softball fields. And there was a lull in the action, and I'm just kind of glancing at these do's and don'ts of the park. And I think it was the very last one stated something along the lines, it is a felony to commit one of the following against a sports official: harassment, menacing, or assault. And I thought, wow, not just a misdemeanor, but a felony. And Carlos, what I did, and I forwarded this to you, there's 18 different states that have criminal laws regarding assault specifically on a sports official. And some of those include the state in which the show is done in, the state of North Carolina, and then some of the Radio Maria states as well. This pertains to Louisiana, Texas, Pennsylvania, and others. And you and I were talking off air, Carlos, and I'll leave you the final word on this, but we were both kind of surprised that a law actually had to be instilled. In other words, what's the difference between assault on an official and assault on another individual? I'll leave you with the final word, brother.
Yeah, interesting. My first thought was, really, we have to put a law that says that?
Yeah.
I thought it was common sense, but apparently it's not.
No.
And apparently it needs to be emphasized, and I think it's one of these things in the heat of battle, parents have a tendency to forget where they are, and clearly there are states that feel that they need to bring further, insight, further attention to this particular area, which is, and I find it interesting that you have to list harassment, right?
That's
and
right.
To me, and then my legal side thinks to myself, well, what's the definition of harassment? Is boo, ref, boo, terrible call, or what they chant in a lot of stadiums, when the ref calls a call going the wrong way, the whole group can really get at him, and there's some chance that I won't even repeat on.
That's
on
right.
The air.
Don't do that. Yeah, this is a family radio, brother.
But it's amazing that you have to point this out, but clearly it merits further attention, and I'm surprised if only 18 states have it. Then I think there should be 50 states that have it.
Well, Well, but in fairness, yeah, of course, no, it is important, no doubt. But assault is assault, and you and I agreed both off the air, and you mentioned it here. It's really just putting an emphasis on it. In other words, the other 30-plus states that did not put this into law are just saying this is just an extension of laws on assault from one person to another. But I agree that it was done for emphasis or simply effect. In other words, they're just putting a spotlight on the fact that, folks, just because you're mad or really mad doesn't mean that you can berate or harass or, in particular, assault an official or an umpire to any degree. And so my guess is, and you agree with this, I think most people would, it's just for emphasis, but maybe it does need to be there because this is where we've gotten in our society. Listen, brother, thank you very much. This is going to be a little shorter than normal just for the next couple of weeks because we're going to do this Charlotte Catholic football update. I appreciate your words, brother. I appreciate your friendship. We'll talk soon, Carlos Herrera.
Thanks for having me on. Have a great show and a great rest of your week.
Thank you, buddy. All right, Lolitos. There he goes. So that is Carlos Herrera. For those joining us maybe for the first time, it's quite possible because I was the MC at this men's conference the other day, and maybe people are tuning into the show for the first time. Carlos is a longtime friend of mine. We originally met playing rugby. We eventually reconnected because we were both youth ministers at our respective Catholic parishes up in Northern Virginia. He stayed up in Northern Virginia. I went on to get my PhD eventually. We've remained friends ever since, and he's been my cohort and the periodic co-host, or most Mondays actually co-host on this show for the last couple months. And I really appreciate his friendship. I really appreciate his insight on these issues.
Yeah, hope he gets to come back and sit in with us in the studio sometime soon.
I know, again. That was great. That was great. I'm going to definitely invite him back and hopefully he comes back soon.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So a couple things. Listen, in a minute here, we're going to do the Charlotte Catholic football update. Right after that, we have weekend headlines. And remember, our guest in the second half of the show is movie and documentary producer Megan Harrington, whose new movie, The House That Rob Built, has just been released. But also, folks, I'm hoping that you've heard of Unplanned, Abby Johnson's incredible journey through Planned Parenthood and then getting out of it. She's a convert to the Catholic faith, and she did the movie. She produced that movie called Unplanned, Megan Harrington, and she's going to be on with us in just a few minutes.
Right when now, the movie came out, we did a big promotion of it here on Carolina Catholic Radio.
No, I think because of Carolina Catholic Radio, a lot of people saw that movie, whereas they would not have otherwise seen it.
Right.
So I really appreciate her work on that, and I really appreciate David Papandreas and the efforts of CCR to get the message out in that movie.
Right.
All right, let's do this, Chris. Charlotte Catholic football update, and then we'll go into weekend headlines.
That's right, with Summer McNamara.
Hi, I'm Summer McNamara, and I'm back in Kiefer Stadium for another recap on this Friday's game. The Charlotte Catholic Cougars took on the Sun Valley Spartans for an unbelievable win. Prior to the game, we were able to get a close-up interview with Charlotte Catholic's head coach, Coach Brodowitz, not only on this game against the Spartans, but also on his hopes for the entire season. When asked, based on how the season was currently progressing, if fans could expect another championship win for the Cougars, their coach had this to say.
No, definitely. There's high expectations at the school to win every year. Not that that's unrealistic that we're going to win every year. But I never thought I'd win 3-1, much less now we're on 3 in a row. That's what we set the bar very high here. That's our goal for it. We work very hard in off season. Our coaching staff and our players stay focused on that, and we do the things that we need to do. So. Again, it could be, just to bounce the ball, because 4 years ago, I think we would have won. We could be on number 5 in a row, but they called a fumble that wasn't a fumble. But that's part of the game. So hopefully the breaks go your way, and hopefully we don't allow, one play to be the deciding factor in the whole season. If we can do that, we have a good shot to be playing in May 8th.
If you could give me one word to describe your team this season, what would it be and why?
I say resilient. And just because of all the changes that we've all gone through in school, with the half days, no days, virtual, non-virtual, quarantine, back and forth, you have to just be resilient and try to just sit there and keep your head in the right spot. Don't get too high, don't get too low, knowing that, hey, we don't control a lot of these things. So anything we can do is, take the cards that were dealt, whatever they are, and just keep plugging along.
How has the team been impacted by COVID? Do you think this year the physical strength has been weakened? And how about the morale? Has that been weakened or strengthened in the face of the pandemic?
Well, actually, the pandemic, it worked in our favor as a silver lining, so to speak, because we were very young in the offensive line area. So we got to be, so we've kind of inverted. Playing in the spring allowed us to do all of our strength conditioning with Coach Hazel in the fall since we were in school. So that was a huge plus for us. And now our kids are really, they're almost like juniors, the 10th graders that we brought up and some of the guys. So we're extremely strong, and I think we're in the best shape we've been in going into a football season because we had an extra semester to do it. So the pandemic was, if I had to say one benefit, which I'm not a big favor of the pandemic, but the one benefit was that postponement allowed our kids to get strong, and they worked hard and were ready to go.
What's been a strength of your team you've been able to rely on?
Probably this year, it's probably our defensive front seven again, with our linebackers and our defensive front. They're the ones that are most experienced coming back. With Liam Barbie, who's been our leading tackler for 2 years at linebacker, and Connor Daughtry coming back as a defensive end, as a starter, and then we got Ariel Rodriguez and then Austin Alexander. So we had 3 starters back from that defensive line, and they're all well over 300 pounds in benching, and then Will Detmer and Liam are 2 linebackers that played in the state championship game. So those 5 out of the 7 is really strong because they've been in these battles before, and all of them played in state championship games before, and some played in 2.
Afterwards, we were able to get a few statements from Charlotte Catholic's wide receiver, Blake Beecher.
Great all-around team this year. We've gotten a lot stronger in the weight room, a lot better this year. Everybody's strong. We're the strongest team Coach Brado's had in a while, he says, so definitely there. And then we're fast this year, really fast. We got a lot of seniors both sides of the ball, so that's good to have.
When asked what it would be like to win another championship game, Blake Beecher had this to say about his coach.
We're going to four-peat it, get another ring on Coach Brado's finger. That's the goal. It always is.
What's the most exciting part of the game for you?
I love it all. I'd say after the game, you get the relief, and we're all in the locker room. We're all excited, but we're always ready for the next game.
Catholic was ahead straight out of the first quarter with a 23-0 lead on the Spartans. The Red Machine was unable to be stopped. Only 2 minutes into the second quarter, running back Paul Neal made that true with a 27-yard touchdown run, making the score 30-0. Again in the second quarter, Paul Neal also had a 40-yard touchdown run. Quarterback Sean Boyle made a 23-yard pass to number 85 Jack Larson in the second quarter as well, making halftime a 44-0 lead for the Cougars. The game ended with a score of 51-7 and a victory for Charlotte Catholic. If you liked what you heard here today, be sure to check out carolinacatholicradio.org, and please join us next week.
Well, there you go, folks. Our Charlotte Catholic football update. In fact, it's going to be a shortened season. It's a spring season. Both those things are out of the norm, but we're going to start covering them on a regular basis. We thought this would be a good place to house the football update at Charlotte Catholic, so we're going to hear it for the next couple of weeks, and we wish them luck. In fact, I'm not sure they need much luck. Those guys have literally, I think they've won the last 3 state titles, and I wouldn't doubt if they were highly competitive for a 4th.
That's right. And a good job by Summer McNamara, a fellow student there at Charlotte Catholic.
Very good. Very good. Folks, let's just go right into our weekend headlines. In the PGA, Aussie Matt Jones wins the Honda Classic, pulling away. Next up is the Punta Cana Championship in the Caribbean. And by the way, the Masters is just 2 weeks away. In NASCAR, Ryan Blaney took the flag at Folds of Honor Quick Trip in Atlanta. Next is the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway. So,
That's
Chris,
right.
So we mentioned a couple weeks ago that they were having their first dirt race when we reported that. But this is actually the first dirt race in literally decades. So this will be interesting for the fans of NASCAR.
Looking forward to that one.
Very good. All right, NCAA men's basketball. Well, the country's most popular tournament is called March Madness, and the madness delivered. Several major upsets include number 8 Loyola of Chicago beating number 1 seed Illinois, number 11 Syracuse beating number 3 seed WVU, and I think the real story is Oral Roberts moving into the Sweet 16 by shocking first number 2 Ohio State and then number 7 Florida. By this weekend, by the way, the remaining 16 teams will be revealed. And lastly, Major League Baseball. Exhibition games are in Week 4, so opening day we can legitimately say is next week, and that's April 1st. So there you have it, folks. Sports headlines that may or may not change your life. Stay tuned for the second half of Faith in Sport. In particular, we have interview with producer Megan Harrington, whose documentary, The House That Rob Built, has just been released. She's also the co-producer of Unplanned. Stay tuned for that and a couple other things right after this.
You are listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria, so stay tuned, all of our Radio Maria listeners and our listeners on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. We've got more Faith and Sport coming right up after the break.
The Carolina Catholic Video on Demand section is now available with over 40 video segments from our 12-hour virtual conference held on September 12th. You'll find it under the On Demand tab at carolinacatholicradio.org.
Carolina Catholic News. Are concerns of anxiety, loneliness, or depression plaguing you or a loved one during this time of uncertainty? Catholic Charities Diocese of Charlotte's mental health counseling program is available to help. The agency now provides telecounseling sessions, which means that more people across the entire diocese can access mental health counseling. Telecounseling is offered through an easy-to-use and secure HIPAA-compliant platform. People use their computer, mobile phone, or tablet to have a one-on-one confidential session with a counselor. The online sessions last about an hour and include the same quality and types of services as in-person counseling. Counseling is available to individuals and couples, and bilingual counseling sessions are also available. All mental health counseling staff possess a master's degree in either psychology, counseling, or social work and are licensed to provide behavioral health care in North Carolina. Operating within the social teachings of the Catholic Church, they consistently provide professional, evidence-based therapeutic interventions in treating behavioral health problems, ranging from relationship, stress and adjustment problems to acute and chronic mental illness. Services are provided on a sliding fee scale based on income and health insurance coverage when possible. Access to a computer is needed to receive these services. Go to carolinacatholicradio.org, news section for all the details. For the Carolina Catholic News, I'm Pam Cullen. God bless y'all.
Faith in action. This is the Knights of Columbus of North Carolina. There is much need for help in all of our communities today, whether it's helping to build the domestic church through our faith or reaching out into our communities to ensure no neighbor is left behind in their time of need. The Knights of Columbus offers a multitude of ways to serve, all leading by our faith. Come and see what we're all about. Join us for a year for free at www.kofc.org/join us and use promo code McGivney2020 to join for free.
The Carolina Catholic 40 Days of Giving Lenten Pledge Drive is underway. Carolina Catholic has expanded its local lineup with a wide array of new programs each week, like Spotlight with Gail Buckley Behringer, Faith and Sport with Dr. John Acquaviva, and Joyful Echo with Jean Whalen and Kathleen Lewis. You'll find all programs available anytime on demand. Remember, Carolina Catholic is a 100% listener-supported 501c3 nonprofit. Please consider making a pledge to donate today through our website or mobile app. Thank you for your support.
Once again, this is Faith and Sport coming to you on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across the Radio Maria Radio Network. So welcome back to all of our Radio Maria listeners. I'm Chris, the producer of the show, and once again, here he is, the host, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Thank you, buddy. Let's get this second half of the show started. In 1 minute, we're going to bring on producer Megan Harrington, and she's been behind several projects. Boy, she's been really busy this last year or so. But one of the ones that she's known for, she co-produced Unplanned. And
That's right.
I think a lot of people know of this movie. It was the story of Abby Johnson, who was actually working for Planned Parenthood, and then she had second thoughts on the whole thing, and then eventually I think she was enlightened with the truth, and not only did she leave Planned Parenthood, she converted to Catholicism and has been one of the biggest outspoken people against abortion. And the guest in 1 minute, Megan, she was one of the co-producers of that movie. But in particular, she's going to come on to talk about her new documentary called The House That Rob Built, about not only a great coach in her mind and by testimony of other people that played for Coach Rob, but Megan also played for him as well. And so we'll bring her on in just 1 minute. Before we do that, brother, I'm looking at my bracket here, for the NCAA tournament. Did you fill one out by chance?
No, I didn't really fill one.
Have you ever done this in the past?
Yeah.
I love it how people say after the first day or after the first weekend, they're like, man, my bracket is busted. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, everybody's is. You can't pick this silly thing. My buddy sent me this every year. They send me this pool that I can get in, and you get a point for if you get a first round. If you get the second, if you pick a winner in the second round, you get 2 points and so forth. And it's like $50, right? I wouldn't give a nickel for that. I don't mind gambling on stuff like that, but I'm not going to give a. You might as well just shoot dice. You might as well just go to Vegas with a couple $100 and play blackjack.
Right.
Trying to pick this thing is silly.
Right, and unfortunately, my Wolfpack didn't make it through the first round, so I didn't really have a reason to make a bracket, but I've been keeping track of them in the NIT.
That's
they
right.
had a good win against the Davidson Wildcats. Now they're moving on to a game against Colorado State University.
There you go.
It'll be a good game.
When is that game, brother?
The 24th.
Got it. So it's in 2 days from now.
Yes,
Very good.
That's right.
Well, I just want to let the folks know, last week, one of the things that periodic co-host and I did, Ed Billick, is I said, Ed, let's not pick a whole bracket. Let's just pick 2 upsets. Well, that would be considered major upsets. So Ed picked, in the first round, Winthrop beating Villanova, and then he also picked Syracuse beating San Diego State. Both of those were big upsets. He actually got one of those 2 correct. Syracuse not only beat San Diego State, they beat number 3 West Virginia in the aforementioned weekend headlines, and now they're in the Sweet 16. Yours truly, John Acquaviva, I picked number 12 Georgetown over Colorado. That didn't happen. However, number 13 North Texas beat Purdue, and I got that one right. So both Ed and I picked one big upset out of 2. So basically, for all your gambling needs, Chris, the moral of the story here is come to Ed or I.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be awesome, baby.
All right, let's bring on our guest right now. She's hanging out on the line. I am so thankful she said yes to this show. She is a perfect guest for this show. She's a former player. She's a faithful gal, and she's still working in what I would say in the field of Christianity and Catholicism. Let's bring her on right now and talk to her about some of her projects. Megan Harrington, welcome to Faith and Sport.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you today.
This is fantastic. Okay, so the new documentary that just came out a couple months ago, actually just last month, wasn't it, Megan?
That's right, February 23rd.
And it's called The House That Rob Built, and it's about your former coach, the former coach of University of Montana, Rob Selvig. Tell us who Rob Selvig was.
Well, Rob Selvig was a pioneering coach at the University of Montana in Missoula, and he came upon the scene of women's basketball in an era when gender discrimination in sports was the norm.
Yeah.
And what he built was a house of inclusion and empowerment by recruiting kids from Native American reservations, ranches, farms, small towns, and giving them a chance. And he built, over 40 years, a powerhouse in women's basketball west of the Rockies, certainly dominating his own conference, which is the Big Sky Conference.
Okay, so I said this to you in our kind of preparation for this interview. He, in essence, and University of Montana, they were the University of Connecticut before the University of Connecticut was the University of Connecticut. What weren't they, to a degree?
Well, yeah. So they were both growing at the same time. And you know, at Connecticut, he's been there a long time. Pat Summitt, certainly Tennessee for a long period of time, and Tara Vanderveer at Stanford.
Yeah.
just creating these programs, committing themselves, which not only did they commit themselves, but they also were able to stay. Coaching is a very difficult profession. When I came to know a little better of how difficult it is to stay at one place, not only for Rob, but just to stay at one place for 38 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So he was building and doing something that wasn't happening all over the country. And, in 1980, I think 88, they were number 6 in attendance. Well, that's incredible. You're talking about Missoula, Montana. The size of the town was probably, at the time, was 50, 60,000.
Yeah.
So a unique story, really an underdog story.
Absolutely. And everybody loves those stories. So, folks, check this out. Megan, how can they see this documentary, The House That Rob Built?
If you go to thehousethatrobbuiltmovie.com, thehousethatrobbuiltmovie.com, that's the main webpage. From there, you'll be able to go to the watch page, or there's a button on the front that says Buy Now. You'll be able to learn more about the film and then hopefully decide to download it or rent it.
Wonderful. I noticed that you mentioned movie, and it's movies in the title of the website. Right. Would you prefer that it's called a movie versus a documentary?
That is a funny question. There's a lot of discussion around that. Either for me, it really is a movie, but sometimes you want to be hyper-specific and say it's documentary so people understand what they're watching. So it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that people enjoy the film.
Absolutely. And it's probably safe to say, Megan, certainly outside of the industry, that not all movies are documentaries, but in essence, all documentaries are movies, right? That's a safe way to say that.
That is actually, I'm going to borrow that.
Oh, there you go.
Excellent way to describe it.
Okay, folks, we are talking with Megan Harrington. She is the producer of the movie, The House That Rob Built. It's about University of Montana basketball coach Rob Selvig. And I want to know, put yourself in the seat of the gals that were interviewed for this movie. Megan, what did he personally do for you?
He gave me an opportunity and took a chance. And I didn't realize that until we interviewed the 70 or so people, many of those being former players, is player upon player. Even these ones that went through the program that were the best that this school has ever seen, when they asked what they were grateful for, it was the chance, that he took a chance on them. And how many women felt that way? And I think that is very relatable in life. You may think that someone just has this easy road and everything just came perfectly, but every person, someone gave a chance who got an opportunity, and that was really profound for me because I personally felt that way. Certainly, sports gives you perseverance, working with a team, being able to work together towards a common goal, setbacks, struggles, failures, family, all those things apply. But to be part of it, you need a chance.
Absolutely. Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, also a co-production of Radio Maria. We are speaking with movie producer Megan Harrington, and we're discussing her movie, The House That Rob Built, about her former coach and longtime coach at University of Montana, Rob Selvig. It's interesting, Megan, you're mentioning the first thing when I said, what is it about Rob Selvig that spoke to you, and you talked about the opportunity that he gave and gave so many women. And it's interesting. I'm in my 21st year as a PhD. So needless to say, at both universities that I've taught, there's been a lot of student athletes that have come through my door, either as advisees or students or both. And it's interesting how many times that comes up. People are recruited, both guys and gals are recruited to play a sport. Sometimes they come from really far away to play the sport at the university in which I'm teaching, and wherever they go play. And those are the words that they all say. It's like, Coach, just give me a chance. And there was just a student in my office the other day who said, the coach recruited me. He said he was going to give me a great opportunity to not just play, but to start on a regular basis. And then eventually he cut him from the team, and he gave him 3 at-bats on the baseball team. And so I can relate to that because I just heard this from this student athlete the other day. So God bless Rob Selvig for doing that alone. Now, how about some specific qualities, Megan, that Rob Selvig had at, like, for instance, developing leaders or instilling confidence in the women he coached? What were some of the characteristics that he demonstrated to bring that out in girls and to fully instill that?
Well, he demanded excellence and he demanded execution. I mean, we would laugh. Sometimes practice would be like, you did not get to that exact spot on the court to make that exact pass. Do it again. One girl talks about having to do it, which I can relate to, over and over and over. But what he was developing is, games are in, you're tired, it's emotional, it's intense. You've got to be able to execute. Practice makes performance. So he was demanding that. He also was able to push people, one girl says it in the film, to the point of just about breaking you, but getting the absolute best of you. So you have that ability to walk that line and push you farther than you thought you could go, to reach a place you never thought you could reach. And that he did with every person on the team, because every person to him had a role. Yeah. And what he was doing is helping you develop your role. Like, everybody comes in thinking their role is going to be X, made you believe, no, your strength is here, your strength for our team is here. I'm going to develop that. And when we come together, everybody's going to fire at the right time, knowing and understanding what their role is. So he was very demanding. He's also very funny. He had a great sense of humor. Always helps. He really demanded execution and perfection to the best of our degree, and he demanded that of himself.
Absolutely. Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria. We're talking with producer Megan Harrington, and we're talking about the movie The House That Rob Built, that was just released last month. And in particular, Rob is making reference to her former coach. She played at the University of Montana under this gentleman, Rob Selvig. And, it's interesting, when you're talking about this and the excellence that he drew from players, you experienced this with him, I'm sure. I played college baseball. I played baseball for several years at a semi-professional level. I played a year professionally in Europe. I played rugby for 15 years. So I've been around a lot of sports, been around a lot of coaches. And Megan, you would probably agree with this. One of the things, in fact, what I would put at the top of the list is one of the reasons that some coaches are so successful, and this is what I would call an intangible, is they have some quality, sometimes that cannot be defined, what's the word? It compels people to play at their very best. And my thinking is Rob Selvig is one of those guys. You can't define it, but when women come play for him, they're like, I'm going to be at my best today in practice, and I'm going to be at my best in this game.
You hit it right on the head. It's that he was a great player himself. And, that doesn't always translate into becoming a coach.
Right.
Not every player becomes a coach. But
right.
He had that intangible that allowed him to excel as a coach for the reasons you're saying, indescribable. And also he really knew how to address each player's strengths and weaknesses. And even though he was intense, never felt that it was a personal attack. And it never, it stayed on the court. There was no, mind games and oh, am I going to be doing this or is this going to happen? He was very consistent with how he dealt with his team. And it really is a gift. He has that. He's the person you say that he should have been a coach. Yeah. That was the ideal profession for him.
Awesome. Yeah. Some people are just called to do it. There's no question. There's a job, and then there is a vocation. In almost, in fact, every job can be called a vocation, unless it's against the direct, moral teachings of the church or against society. And this is a great, I think, testimony to that. Megan, let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about sport in general. You mentioned to me in our discussion that we had in preparation for this interview that the University of Montana basketball, women's basketball in particular, is what sport was meant to be and is meant to be. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think there's been so many incredible advances in women's sports particularly, and that's because women in 1978 and earlier, when they were getting opportunities to play college basketball, put on their shoes and played for the love of the game, to be part of something, to take advantage of an opportunity that previously had not been given. And then they blazed a trail for other women to follow. And then each generation passed that torch to the next. And I hope the film and the story is a reminder of the goodness and beauty of what sports is meant to be and what it's meant to teach us. Feels in some ways that it can sometimes be commercialized, or at younger and younger ages there's a demand for playing and traveling and doing all these things that I hope we don't lose track of. Sports is also supposed to be fun.
That's right.
Sports is supposed to be an opportunity to be part of a team and to learn about yourself, that we don't lose that goodness amidst the ever rising demand to be better, to perform better, to hyper-focus more on one sport, that it really is more, it's about more than that.
Megan, you feel blessed for a lot of reasons, I'm sure, in your adult life. And as a young adult, you had the opportunity to play for Rob Selvig at the University of Montana. But my feeling is that's one of the things that's near the top of the list that you are blessed with, that you were there at the right time to experience this coach and experience what he had to give. And what a blessing.
Oh, there's no question. To be able to have lived out my dream of being a little girl in fourth grade and seeing these women in my hometown, which I thought was kind of normal everywhere.
Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't.
No.
To watch them perform and compete in front of thousands and thousands of people following women's basketball here at the University of Montana, blessed would be an absolute perfect word to describe it, because it's a gift to be able to play sports. Obviously the main thing is getting your education. I always say, and I think I borrowed it from someone, best job you could ever have going through college was being able to play college basketball.
It's awesome. For Rob Selvig in particular, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Folks, we're talking with producer Megan Harrington, and we're discussing her movie, The House That Rob Built. It's about Rob Selvig. It was a gentleman who impacted so many young women's lives at the college, women's college basketball level. He coached for years at the University of Montana, and our guest here, Megan Harrington, had a chance to play for him and experience what so many people did, so many young women did. It's just a wonderful experience, and she's articulating that here. One of the things I want to do to draw people to this movie, Megan, is last night, my wife Alicia and I watched the trailer for this movie. And if you have any doubts, people have all these selections on regular TV, on cable TV, and so forth, is to watch this trailer. And literally, after the first one or two women speak about their experiences, similar to what you're doing here, you get drawn into it, and you can tell just how special it is, because that's the one thing people don't fake, is when they're talking about somebody else. I think people can fake it when they're talking about themselves, but you could just tell it's genuine and it's very real, and it's going to be one of the things that draws you into the movie. So give this movie a chance by watching at least the trailer, and I think next thing you know, you'll be hitting play on this movie. Now, Megan, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about another movie that you co-produced, Unplanned. I think most of our listening audience is probably familiar, at least vaguely. I think a lot of people have seen it. We know millions have. Let me end this conversation with this, but I do want to mention it and give you a chance to address the following. Now, several or a couple years out since it's been released, what was the month and the year that this movie was released, just so I got this correct? March 2019. Okay. So 2 years ago, literally almost to the day. Now, Now I know you, me, so many other people, millions of people who've seen this said the whole world needs to see this movie. But from a realistic standpoint, were you pleased with the way the press covered it, and ultimately how many people saw this movie, or you had some ideas on certain numbers or had visions on how this would be covered? Just kind of comment on that in a general way.
Sure. Well, I mean, really, all the credit goes to the directors and producers, Chuck Konzelman and Carrie Solomon. They really championed the film from start to finish. My role was certainly minimal in the grand scheme of the film getting produced. I know tangentially that I think there's some outlets that did not cover it. Understandably, you're fighting, this story of getting out into the world, but they did an incredible job. The PR and marketing for it was incredible, because people themselves championed it, and it came out in a time that was unique for it. And I think it's God orchestrates timing perfectly, and I think He did that with this movie. It was long in the making in terms of from when I know interaction from the beginning to it reaching theaters, and it reached theaters at just the right time. So there's more work to be done with it. There's more audiences to engage with it. But really, the PR, the marketing, and the producers, directors, all credit. Obviously, we know all credit goes to God, but all credit goes to the human capacity to work and tirelessly
Absolutely.
to make it get to the spot that it did.
Absolutely. Well, I just mentioned that was going to be the way we're going to end, but I wanted to actually take another minute, if you would indulge us, because I wanted to start the conversation with this, and it just slipped my mind. I wanted to get in this conversation about Rob Selvig, but it's better that we talk about it now, too late than not at all. But I wanted to start with people know what writers are. They know who the actors are. They know what I think mostly a director does. But what does a producer do for a movie?
Yeah, yes, that's an often asked question in terms of what do you do?
Yeah.
And it can vary. For the role that produced by that I was for the films that I worked on, it was really start to finish. It was from conception of the idea and development of the idea to production, to shooting, interviews, creating questions, to hiring, to post-production, to marketing and distribution. So it's a long process. It's not like so. For example, a director of photography may come on, and they're there for production. They're going to do the shoot, and they move on to multiple other projects throughout the course of a year. Where for multiple years, a producer could be pushing, working, developing, and trying to get a film made. So it's basically all encompassing from start to finish.
Very good. Megan, God bless you, and thank you for all you've done for the faith, and you've done things directly to impact people's faith, and especially making film production a noble gesture. And I want to thank you for your time here on the show. And as we talked last night, I'm going to reach out to you again in a couple weeks because we talked about we could easily have part 2 of this because I want to talk about some of your other projects that are about to be released. And please come back when we make another offer. How's that?
Oh, I'd be honored. Thank you for your help promoting and all that you do.
Oh, thank you, Megan. Take care, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thank you.
There you go, folks. Film producer Megan Harrington. It's interesting. I didn't even mention perhaps the most, or as known as anything that she's done, is The Dating Project. I would think, especially if you are single or if you are a parent of a single person, I think you would have special interest in this movie called The Dating Project. This is one of those many, many movies that isn't viewed by all that high of a number, but it's one of those things where people just go, wow, that is a powerful, powerful message. It's called The Dating Project. Again, the main part of our conversation was about the house that Rob built, and we talked a little bit about Unplanned as well. So you have a lot to check out regarding Megan Harrington. Folks, listen, we're right up against time here. Before we go, as always, I want to leave you with a quote from John Paul II, who said about sport, "Give thanks to God for the gift of sport in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator." Again, that's from John Paul II. Before we go, a special thank you to Carlos Herrera, producer Megan Harrington, for joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria for more Faith in Sport.
You've been listening to Faith and Sport, brought to you by the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also brought to you by Radio Maria, the Radio Maria Network. We want to thank all of our Radio Maria listeners for tuning in around the Radio Maria Network, and as well, thank all of our Carolina Catholic Radio Network listeners for tuning in. And if you want to hear more Faith and Sport, check out carolinacatholicradio.org at Carolina Catholic Radio on demand for the full Faith and Sport radio archive.